Hi. We're just getting set up for now, and we'll begin shortly. Yeah, I'm gonna link it right now. I'll send it to you. That's a good question. Meanwhile, everybody just make sure you're connected up to like the Wi-Fi here at the library. It's the network is the CCRL public internet. Meanwhile, everybody just make sure you're connected up to like the Wi-Fi here at the library. It's the network is the CCRL public internet.
He brought it already. Oh, he did. Oh, yeah. We just read the questions and that stuff. Yeah.
Setup was just taking a little longer than expected because some of the adapters are missing, but we'll make do.
The adapter split port to HDMI.
Oh, if you have an adapter for that, that'd be great.
Oh,
Yeah, thank you.
It's not HDMI?
They have HDMI, but it's all the way on this side, and the power's on that side, and there's a problem with it. Thank you very much. Oh, it's perfect. Thank you. Oh, should wait. I'll see this mic.
Right?
Yeah, this mic.
Here's one more HDMI.
Pretty sure that's it, because I can.
Oh no, it's a distant port.
That's a
HDMI in. Here's in HDMI. What is this? Let's remove this projector temporarily. In HDMI, right?
Oh yeah, I see that one there. Yeah.
Right, it was connected to. But we don't need to this thing, right?
No.
What is this? I have no
That's
clue.
why I see this. I can closer.
Why? Nikita, here's your HDMI.
Yeah, I have to reach it all the way there, right?
Oh.
Right. Just move the computer.
Which side is HDMI? Yeah.
We actually found it.
Yeah, I disconnected some other device. Let's,
Don't worry. I'll take it first.
let's move.
I got it from here.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. We'll just start this up. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to share the links for the live streams on the various platforms, and then we'll get started. Give me just 1 second.
Are you going to publish it on the tab?
Yes, in just a moment. I just have to get the link to it. I sent it to you as well. Oh, okay, you're there? Okay, good, good. Okay. Yeah, okay, so where we should be good, I just gotta make sure the audio source is correct. Alright, so the audio is working. Nice. I posted on Meetup. Scroll down. Scroll down. There's a...
Oh.
Nothing.
Oh, here it is.
No, that's go forward. Keep going.
There's a
Keep
YouTube
going.
link, if that's what you're, yeah.
Yes, there
Oh,
it
here
is.
it is, okay.
Yes. It just seems Meetup
Yeah,
always
yes,
sorts them
yes.
in the reverse order.
I just expected it to be at the top.
Yeah, it's weird that Meetup does it, but it's okay. Okay, so
Forum,
we'll get started now. Just 1 second. So we'll be getting started now. Thank you everybody for joining. This is the second Vaughan School of AI meetup. So, and the topic today is going to be Docker for data science. So, to give you a little bit of a background about Docker, Docker is basically a container-based service that runs on your machine. So what does that mean? Some of you are maybe familiar with virtual machines already. So we have virtual machines. It's something that you set up on your computer that basically tries to emulate, like it's like a fake operating system on your machine. So here we have comparison. So what a virtual machine does on your computer is create resources and try to emulate it. It's as if, for example, you try to run Windows inside your Mac, for example, or like Ubuntu or any other Linux operating system inside of Windows. That's a virtual machine. What that happens is it tries to create everything that virtual machine might need, and that wastes a lot of resources that you often don't need. What Docker does is instead it runs natively on your machine and creates an environment for containers to be run in, and that's what we use to run our code. So to go back a little here is, why might somebody want to use Docker? Docker, the idea of containers is that you have an environment that you create that is completely defined and runs the same on any machine you might put it on, whether it be somebody's maybe old laptop running Windows, or like the newest gaming rig, or it's somebody's MacBook, right? The Docker container will function the same regardless of what operating system it's placed on, and that's what allows it to make sure that we have consistency in how we run our code. This means that we have less setup, because you can have containers or images which are used to create containers be set up with your environment already. Because, for example, if you're doing any sort of data science work or anything with machine learning, you have to go through a lot of steps of like installing TensorFlow, setting up all these other parts of your environment, and it can often be a lot of work, and sometimes you can even spend days before getting to what you actually wanted to do, which is build a model or something else like that. So you have less setup. Initially, you have like some setup steps, but whenever working on a new project that you may want to use a Docker image for, there's a lot less that you have to do. You have a controlled environment, so this is great for working with teams, because a constant problem when working with teams, just take a seat anywhere. So a constant problem when working with teams is that I can send my code to somebody else that I wrote, and it just won't work on their machine, right? Because they have a different, say I'm running Windows, they're running Linux, they're running some like Ubuntu or something, and it just straight up doesn't work because my code was using, say, some library that doesn't work on Linux, and it's just a disaster, right? So what we do with Docker is we define a consistent environment that then, if we both run in the same Docker container, and we can share our work together like that easily, because I'm guaranteed that they will perform in the same way. So yes, consistent for teamwork. Also, working offline. The reason I put that here is that you could also, to solve similar problems, you could use an online environment. Like last time we mentioned something like Paperspace, or you could use Google Colab, where they create an environment for you already. But here you have more control, and once you have the environment set up, you don't necessarily need to have a consistent, say, internet connection. So if like you're one of those people that likes to work on a train or something like that when you're taking a ride or something else, you're able to do that. And you can also deploy this anywhere. Whereas when you have a setup, say, in Google Colab or in, say, Paperspace or anything else like that, you're kind of locked into their way of doing things. Whereas a Docker container is pretty much Docker containers are pretty much universally supported by people like Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud, and a lot of these, or on your own, anywhere on your machine. Like anywhere you can run an operating system, you can set up Docker and run your code. Yeah, so what so just a quick kind of the difference between a Docker container and a virtual machine is that the container runs natively and it's very lightweight, whereas virtual machines, they run as a guest operating system, which means that they run an operating system on top of your operating system, and that uses up a lot of resources, like we mentioned. And this was like taken straight from just the Docker kind of documentation. So I believe we were getting to the point where we wanted to start setting up Docker on each of our machines, and then we'll see how we can use it to run Jupyter notebooks and run some basic machine learning experiments on each of our machines, right? So there's a couple of links here, and I've also linked them in the meetup group to how to set up Docker. So based off your setup, and I'll be going around in a moment to kind of help people out, and I'll also be looking in the YouTube chat as well to answer any questions. But the idea is that if you have your Windows machine and you do Hyper-V setup, for that you most likely need something. If you're Windows 10, you most likely need Windows 10 Pro. So if you don't have that, you probably want to go with this second option here. So, and it's also the options listed on Meetup as well. So based on you'll follow one of these links depending on if you have a Mac, if you have a Windows machine, and on Windows there's more specific stuff. Do you have Hyper-V set up or not? So,
sorry, just a quick question. I've got an Ubuntu VM with Docker installed. Is that going to be good enough? Or?
Yes, that should be good. That should be good.
Thanks.
That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I actually didn't link to for like an Ubuntu setup here, but you can find them all on that side. If anybody else has that similar setup, you can find it on that Docker kind of documentation page as well. So yeah, so I know some people have been having a little bit of trouble having their setup. So if anybody hasn't begun yet, you can do so right now. Follow those links. If I can get a show of raise of hands of how many people got just the basic Docker setup working. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna walk around, and I know you said there's like a little bit of trouble.
Downloading's done, but still it's some issues. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a moment here to walk around and help people out, and then we're gonna go back to our next step here. For those interested in the next step, let me link you here. So basically, I've created this repository with a basic setup. I'm going to link you on Meetup as well, so it's easier to access. And you can start following the steps in this repository, and then I'll walk around and kind of explain to you what's going on here and kind of how to get those pieces working. Yeah, so actually before I get around to kind of helping people out a bit here, I'll just give a very quick explanation of what's happening here, so that those that are starting with this have an idea. So basically, right here, what we have is you first want to just clone this repository. Make sure you're actually cloning it to somewhere. If you're on Windows specifically, under Users, because of how the permissions work, we're going to be mounting a directory into there, so it's available in your Docker container. But there's going to be a whole bunch of permission issues if you don't put it under Users because of how it's set up. It actually might not be a problem with Docker for Windows, but if you're using Docker Toolbox, it is for sure, because I spent a while battling it again until I realized it's just a simple thing of it just doesn't have permissions to access anywhere except like your users folder when mounting. So you'd probably just go like, for me it's users nvara, and then like I just clone it inside my personal folder. So you would want to clone this repository, and then what we're doing here is we're creating a Docker image. So the Docker image, what that is it's what defines the environment you have set up, and it's really your entire kind of well, your environment where you have your libraries installed, you have like your base, like the base kind of like fake op, kind of like environment in there. And what it really does is, sorry, these pop-ups, I gotta get rid of that. Okay, so really what the image does is then you can run a container from the image, and the container looks at the image to decide what libraries do I need to put in here, what kind of environment am I running in, and all these other setups, so that once you run a container from that image, it'll already be set up. So there's kind of three options here. One is you can just build, because there's this Docker file here, which shows you how to build straight from okay, we'll show that in a moment. So a Docker file shows you how to it basically tells Docker how to construct the image. So when you run this Docker build command, what that does is it basically says, look at the Docker file, and that has a couple of descriptions of how to create the image. And from that, we create the image. Also, if that can sometimes have a little bit of problems if like some of like your DNS stuff isn't set up correctly well, at least on Windows, and I believe on Mac, and there might be a similar issue. So what I did is I also uploaded these images already pre-built for you as well, if this first command is having any issues for you. So all you need to do is run this second command, which is docker pull, and this pulls from my public repository, which will just bring the image onto your system. And then afterwards, you kind of just follow along with these steps, which basically you just run the container, and then you can connect to the Jupyter notebooks through that. So I'll start kind of helping people out a little bit, and then if anybody has additional questions, actually, does anybody have questions so far about what's going on? Okay, so people can start going through with these pieces here, and I'm gonna have a quick walk around, and also I'll take a look at chat in a moment as well if there's anything going on there. All right, okay. All right, so
Start here. So you want to start this, or?
yeah, you want to start your the Docker quick start terminal?
Exiting it.
I see. Okay.
Change the other one. It's still thinking that, or?
The first one will be more of a problem. This one you probably want to do this. Okay, so what you probably want to do then is the step same. It's interesting that it means. Oh, maybe you can't even create like a. Because what Docker 2box does is it basically creates like a side kind of VM on your computer, and it runs kind of Docker inside that VM instead, so that you can kind of bypass some other requirements. If this is so you might have to get into your BIOS and enable this VTX-AD. So we'll first. So do you know what model your computer is by any chance?
Yeah, but recently it's the.
Okay, so we'll just go HP, and we'll just go HP, and then sorry, it's already by. We'll go HP and then enter BIOS. While this way is blank, press that. So you'll need to restart your computer, and then you'll enter BIOS, which is like basically like the lower level kind of like mini operating system, right? And then we'll have to go.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I just wanna keep that one open there. So you might want to, do you have a phone with you? You might want to just search this up on your phone. Because, well, you're not going to have access to this while in your BIOS, right?
You can take photo?
Yeah, you can also take a photo of it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Oops. Let's just try this more.
What is this include?
Yeah, it should be good. So try entering, for now, just try entering BIOS. I'm going to go take a look what's going on over there. And I'll be back in just a moment. Perfect, thank you. Awesome. So, what's been kind of going on? So you've been
Yeah, I just downloaded and then he helped me to actually install that and just I ran the Hello World.
awesome. So yeah.
So next step will
Next step
copy the
Yes,
repository.
clone the repository. If you have a GitHub account, you can do like git clone, or if you don't have a GitHub account, you can just,
Okay.
or you can also just go straight to that,
The link.
the link, and then you download it as a
clone
zip.
that. Okay.
Yeah. So awesome. Thanks, man.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Where am I looking for GitHub for the repository?
Yeah. You can go to probably my account. I also linked it on Meetup if you have it, but.
But do you
Oh, I
already
just-
link that on Meetup?
Oh, sorry, actually, I don't think I posted the link on Meetup.
Yeah, I
Just
think you
realized.
said-
Yeah, give me 1 second. That's a good. Thank you. Okay. Just posted. Oh, perfect. That was linked. Others linked already in the chat. Okay, nice. Okay, I'm just gonna post it on Meetup as well, cause. Oh, I see what's happening. Let me just go on. Okay, so I've linked the GitHub repo on Meetup, and it's also the YouTube chat as well for those online. So just follow the steps there as I was just describing previously. So you just want to set up the image, go through to choose one of these steps. You don't have to do all three. If you have a worse internet connection, I didn't explain the third option. So the third option is just a smaller image because I was anticipating possibly the connection here might not be the best. So if you're having trouble downloading the second image, which is larger, the option 2, which is larger, you could try option 3. That just won't include NLTK, but there's TensorFlow and other parts set up in there already. For enough examples, it's just
Take the battery out?
I hope not, but maybe wait a couple more minutes. If it doesn't stop doing this, you might just hold your power button, just shut it down, and then just manually turn it on. And I think I have to keep pressing inside the F10 key to so before it starts doing this to get it. You have to get into BIOS. So, okay.
Yeah, but with this computer is new to me, so.
Yeah. you're in the directory where you cloned it to. Yeah, do you have Git installed, or if not, you can
Yeah, I think so.
just type in Git. Yeah.
That's working.
Okay, if Git's not working, you can just do here clone or download,
Right, okay.
and you can just download the file, instead.
Okay.
So what that will do is then you can just extract it somewhere on your like on your desktop or something like that, and then make sure you're going there.
Okay, so for that, I just do, and then it's just basically just CD to the directory.
To wherever you extracted it to. Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now ideally it should work. I'm just gonna go take a look in there for a second, and I'll be back in a moment.
Do we need to be specific directory in order to run a record?
I think you just have to remember, if you look at the second one, it's remember the directory later on.
Okay. So, did he say that we went from 1, 2, 3, or we picked one?
Pick one.
I think we overwhelmed the internet connection.
Is it taking too long to download?
Yeah, you should ask next time maybe to connect to the different. Maybe they can give you.
Yeah, a separate network. Yeah.
Separate network.
Yeah. Is it having problems downloading right now?
I'm connected through my